Welcome to the Riveo Impact Lab, the podcast in which we explore what it means for small businesses to have real impact in an evolving world. On this podcast, we engage our curiosity around topics like sustainability, diversity and inclusion, and the ethical outcomes of our decisions, all from a small business perspective.
Hi there, I'm Elin.
And I'm Emily, and we're really excited to share our episode with you today. As a reminder, we release episodes once a month on the second Thursday of every month, so make sure to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. And you can support us by listening, sharing, or leaving a review.
Yeah, today we're sharing our interview with Mary Fehlig, the founder and president of the Fehlig Group. Mary is a true leader in the field of sustainability and ethical business practices. The Fehlig Group has been in operation for over 30 years. Mary herself has been named a Women's Business Enterprise, or WBE star, and was elected to serve on the board of directors of the Business for Social Responsibility, which are just two of her many, many accomplishments. I first met Mary a few years ago when we were doing a sustainability training with one of our corporate partners. And we've had the great fortune to work with Mary in many capacities since then. We're excited to continue doing so into the future as well.
Yeah, and I've had the opportunity to learn from Mary in a few different ways, both from participating in the Fehlig Group's Pulse Report audit, which is something that we'll get into in the episode, as well as participating in a sustainability accelerator program, which I think, Ellen, you were referencing. Mary truly is the person that you want in your corner when it comes to understanding social responsibility and how to approach these ideas of sustainability and ethical business practices in a way that's not only good for people and planet, but also is actually good for your business. So she's was a fantastic guest, and I'm really excited to share this episode with everyone.
Yeah, me too. She's knowledgeable. Every time I talk to her, I get inspired. And I think the conversation in this episode is no exception to that. So sit back, relax, and please enjoy this episode of the Riveo Impact Lab. Mary, I'm really excited to have you here today. You're somebody that we've wanted to get on our podcast for a long time. So thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
And thank you for your patience.
Well, I'm glad we were able to make it work out. And I guess a great place to start the conversation is to hear about the Fehlig Group. And maybe you could explain what you do and why you started doing it in the first place.
Okay. It was, again, we've been doing this for a while, since 93, and it really was to help companies identify, implement, communicate, and evaluate their responsible business practices. Back then we really had to kind of, what? And it's like, okay, so how do you have business practices that are, you show, that you're a good steward of the planet? How do you respect and treat your people well? And then also make sure it's contributing to your profitability. So that's the whole, planet, people, profits, or, and then also, how do you do that in a way that also doesn't, that doesn't hurt and actually, doesn't hurt future generations? So that's the goal, is how to encourage companies to understand this is a business practice. Because it was interesting, Ellen, back there, it was, that's government's role, or that's the church's role. This is not the role of business to take care of people and to be, stewards of the environment, or be any sort of a safety net for our society at large. And I always quote the Ben and Jerry's, actually it was Ben who would always say to me, and and in these presentations, that, it's whoever's in power should be the one that steps into that role of responsibility. And if you look at over history, how you tell who's in power is by looking at the buildings. Who has the biggest buildings? So whoever has the biggest buildings needs to step into this. So anyway, it was, that's the goal. And that's what we do for clients, is, help them embrace sustainability, which we believe is a business imperative, which we can talk more about, and has evolved significantly over the years. But if you want to say how I started.
Yeah. Like, how did you, like, back in 93, it seems like you were
Yeah.
well ahead of the curve, I think, if
Yeah,
I'm trying to think back.
I had to do, I hired somebody to do research about, and the question was, how can I love business and I was selling technology and I was selling, and I was helping people go online. Okay, I'm dating myself. So one transaction touched so many aspects of the business. That fascinated me. But every personality test and vocational training thing I did said I should be working for a nonprofit. So some sort of social work, some sort of social mission. So where does social mission and commercial success intersect? And that's when I actually um, pursued, somebody told me, so I went out and pursued businesses for social responsibility. And I think I went to their second conference. Um, you know, um, so we're Madeleine Albright and Bill Clinton, and everybody was showing up talking about this. And so I learned they were like my university. So that's how I found out about how, my goal was to find my goal. Where could I really have purposeful work? And then to be really transparent. I had these two beautiful baby girls at home, and if I was going to leave them, it had to be cooler than selling feeds and speeds and networks, So,
Well, I think you've definitely achieved that. And over the past, what is it, 33 years that
hmm
you've been in
hmm
business, you've made huge amounts of impact. And I'm sure I only know a portion of what you've done, and how you measured your own impact, because you've helped companies large and small with their
hmm
sustainability. So, what was like, has there been a shift over the past 33 years that you could identify thinking back to, when you were first getting into this? And I guess there's probably been more than one shift
I
because
was
now
going to
we're,
say yes.
'cause there was kind of like a renaissance and now we're in a
Uh,
different time.
Yeah, but Ellen, it really has shifted over time. And I've been here before. I've been at a point where it looked like it was pretty perilous. It was precarious. Um, so it shifts, and I think that's what we've done is that we've always shifted with what the needs of the business community, the business atmosphere are. So if it was, you know, um, in the 90s, climate action was not a top priority. Most of our work was in philanthropy and it was in volunteering and trying to really embrace. And because of it, at that time, it was a labor market that were people trying to find employees. So we worked a lot in terms of that's how the benefit to the business was, or the business environment was, oh, I got employees and we need sales. We'd shift, or there was a big issue around the climate. And then and as you know, after George Floyd, that was a huge shift to it's all important, but in terms of I would say in terms of shifting, it's us not dictating, where you need is helping people live their values and then not dictating. Well, we want you to go back and work on philanthropy is showing up where the critical issues are and then surrounding it with the full platform of what was possible.
So you weren't always just focused on environmental, like sustainability?
Oh, no, no.
Oh,
We
I didn't
started
realize
in
that.
philanthropy and volunteering, um, and then moved into um, human resources. I would say even before the environment, we were more in labor, human trafficking and sweatshops and all. So it's just been, in fact, for many years, I would be called into different companies to say, what's the issue du jour? What are we working on now? What's the issue that has, and it's, I don't want to be, um, uh, I don't want to diminish the effort because it was the issue that got attention, so let's step into it. But our experiences, once somebody started stepping into them, I can live my values and it can benefit me commercially. That was just a gift to them. And again, it was whatever the issue was, is that we tried to we'd invite new people into or expand that service with an existing client. Does that answer that
Hmm.
question?
Yeah, yeah. I just didn't realize that about your history because I've known you as the sustainability experts, environmentally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting. Just thinking about how you've evolved and touched an even wider, range of these issues than I realized. But one of the things that's really interesting, I think, is what you just said about it being good business. And I feel that too, like diversity is good business because you're selling,
Mm.
if you want to sell to a very narrow part of the population, or do you want to sell to a diverse population, a broader range of people, and talk to those people in a way that they understand and relate to, like what is the better business practice to me? It's
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
these things, the environmental issues are good business practices. It confuses me to see messaging to the contrary.
And I would say one of our core principles, guiding principles, is that it has to benefit the business.
Hmm.
And when I started this, I had a bunch of people at the BSR community that were like, no, we're just good people. And this is the right thing to do. And my IBM and Xerox background said, it's not sustainable. It's it's not, it's not enduring if the business is not benefiting. So I was kind of a little bit of a black sheep, in that I would say I would always pursue and always communicate what the business benefit was.
But that's so smart. And look, you're here 33 years
Mm.
later, still doing good business. So
Right, right, right.
black sheep or visionary, like, depending on your
Maverick. Let's go with
perspective.
Maverick as opposed to black sheep.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, when you think back on all those businesses you've helped, large and small, we were your client, and
Mhm.
and you helped us get started on our own sustainability journey. But you've helped so many people. So is there a story that kind of stands out to you that's exemplary of the work that you do?
Well, I can think of one for both, large and small, if I
Okay.
may. Large, it would say, it's, it's a while ago. It's Climate Action Week in New York. My contacts at Marriott or at the people in charge of corporate responsibility and sustainability are at the climate action conferences. The Fehlig Group is responsible for their carbon disclosure project we now call CDP, but it was called then the Carbon Disclosure Project. And I'm literally down because the Marriott executives had to be at climate action. I'm on the floor of the stock, and the scores were announced on the floor of the stock exchange because this carbon disclosure project is funded and is for investors. So it was at this point in time, the scores were released on an evening in October on the floor of the stock exchange. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, it's like, I'm here on the floor taking credit for all these. But the people I was working with were the communications people. After that, I went back to Marriott and said, can I talk to the senior vice president of operations? And so I went to him and said, I'm taking credit for the work that you do, how you run your buildings and what you're doing. And I'd like to talk to the people that are doing this. So we set up a team of leaders in engineering all over the world. It was really, and we'd probably gathered for more than a dozen years about what are we doing? What are we doing this year? What are we going to do next year? And it was really an exciting turn to um, from words on a page to being able to directly talk to and have them go, it matters? Cool. Let me tell you what else we're doing. Or I'm thinking about doing this. So that was an exciting, opportunity and experience. And then on a small scale, and I think you're probably one, I know you're one of them, is that we work with the businesses and we do that thing called we have a pulse report, right? Where we come in and say, all right, this is who you are. This is kind of what's expected of you based on your industry, your competitors, your customers. This is what you're doing, and here's the path forward. And so that's how, but, like I'm sure this happened with you, is that when we come to, this is what you're already doing, and this isn't bad. Really? I'm already doing all this. Or, yeah, based on what's expected of you, you're already doing it. You don't know that's what's considered under the lens of sustainability. And that's really a pleasure. I mean, that's obviously that floats our boat is when people realize they're doing so much of this. They just don't understand it fits into this definition of sustainability.
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know.
that was huge for us. And
Hmm.
uh, before we met you and before we
Hmm.
became more educated in sustainability, I used to think that we were too small to make a difference. And we're a small
Mm.
team, we're a remote team, and we're a service company, we're not a manufacturer. So I just was like, who, us? Can we even make a difference? And then we started to understand, yes, we're already doing things. We just have to take the extra step of tracking them so we can quantify what we're doing and then improve
Hmm.
upon what we're doing. And it was just very eye-opening and exciting to take that training
Hmm.
and to realize that we're already on this journey and we can improve upon that. So you changed our whole trajectory when you did your training and kind of learned about that. So.
But it's just really permission to this wonderful, but it's permission to, I get to live my values
Hmm.
and it contributes to my commercial success. That's pretty cool to me. I mean, that is the core of what this is all about is, but what is important to you and what do you, we had this thing where I wanted to migrate the beginning of the Fehlig group. Another story is that I am the daughter of a wholesale manufacturer and custom millwork company in St. Louis that just closed down after 150 years. All right. But I grew up with a father that, um, when they hit, that would not move, even though the neighborhood around him, all of a sudden wasn't the prime place to be. It was more of an economically depressed area, and everybody else was moving out of town. He stayed there because it was like everybody, everybody works here. How are they going to get out to us? How are they going to? I mean, there was just so many stories of watching how they were so connected and their values, his values showed up in that business. So I feel like I lived that experience, so, but I do feel like that. So I really wanted to do small businesses, but it was, the first decade, at least of this business, it was primarily big businesses. I tried everything. I went to the chambers, but I was really brought in by the larger companies. And so, but it was interesting because I got to see the progression. I got to see them go, wow, what I do matters, like I was just talking about, to, working on scores. And now this shift of how do we get the full value chain, which means us, the small businesses. So I'm very excited that this shift has happened. Very excited.
Yeah, and it's really cool that you were able to build your business based on your values. And I think that your business is quite unique. And to my knowledge, like you're the one I always hear about. And in
Hmm.
fact, yesterday I was on a webinar with I think they're called WAICS, WAICS, Washington
Wake,
DC
wake it,
Sustainable. Yeah,
wake it.
Waketh. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and they mentioned you, and I
Hmm.
didn't realize you just seem to be connected everywhere. So and I always feel like, ooh, and I know her. You built a very cool business. Um, and yet with changing political parties and all the things that are happening externally, the world of sustainability and corporate social responsibility can be challenging to navigate. If I asked you what was the biggest change you've seen over your time with this work, would you be able to answer that question?
Um, I think right now I'm an optimist, so I'm looking for the silver lining.
Hmm.
In that, um, when it had gotten to be a lot of compliance. You have to have an assessment by this company, or we won't do business with you. As opposed to, let us use this assessment as a communication tool to really tell you who we are, and and because of that, we're going to be partners. Um, that it was it was okay, but it was a big shift. But now that it's gone, now, not that it's gone, but now that the government or the messaging has changed to, um, and just this intensity about it is, I can't, I mean, I do trainings and people say, well, it doesn't matter anymore. So why should I do this? And I'm like, because you're good people who want to be good stewards of the earth and treat your people well, and you want to live your values. So it's kind of, to me, it's kind of going back to that original messaging. So that's a big shift. So that's a shift. But also the other shift is that, as I was saying, for having the 20 plus years, really just pretty exclusively into, big corporations, and now working with their suppliers, we train the procurement teams how to work with the suppliers. We do the intermediary, and then we work directly with the suppliers. That's not going away. And that's what, especially the big companies, because it's like we saw them go through, the education, the identification, the implementation, the communication, and now they're turning around to their suppliers and asking them to do it. Small and medium-sized businesses, all the suppliers are going through the same process, and the companies know how long it takes, so they want to keep that moving. So our focus really is more on the supply chain.
Yeah, I always feel when I became introduced to the world of sustainability and started meeting some of those larger corporations that require the assessments and actions from their suppliers, it made me think like, wow, this really, despite what the government's doing or what else is happening, this really can make a real impact, positive impact on the world, because some of those companies are really big and they're requiring, there's kind of a ripple effect, they're requiring improvements in their manufacturers and in their, all of their suppliers, and it's got to make a difference.
It does, but what makes even a difference is all of us, and there's so many. We just did for Wake Up, we just did I've been telling proof points of how many consumers and why this matters and plus, my gosh, the next gen and first of all millennials and then the next gen, they're required. It's almost mandatory. The whole conversation has changed. So, and the more and more that we require it as consumers and purchase with our power, that's going to be a big change. And then also telling companies, this is why we're doing this. We are choosing you over them because of this. So it's kind of back to, for me, it's a little bit back to when this, I feel like I'm going a little bit back in time. But in terms of, remember, it's not just about getting that, meeting that legislation or meeting that one client. It's about, is this good business? It's what access to markets. It's attracting talent. It's risk mitigation. The climate's all about risk mitigation.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that in the past, when the government has relaxed environmental regulations, your business became even busier because people were doubling down. At least I think that's what you said. People were doubling down and wanting to do something.
I mean, I went and asked, okay, this isn't going to executives. This is going, do you want to pause? Because it's, it's a lot if the top's not into it, and it's hard to get everybody to get all the information we needed. And he went, absolutely, because, we if not us, who, as well as we want to be able to answer the question, what were you doing then?
Yeah. Yeah, and I really like the way you framed it, in that sometimes in this day and age it can feel like we don't have the power. Like, it can feel very discouraging to see, oh, there's no more environmental regulations on a lot of these manufacturers and such. But we do have power, because we do have the purchasing power. We do have, other ways to express support of, what we choose, how we choose to spend our money or our time, or who we choose to boycott. Like, we do have something that we can do.
Now this might be a little biased because I'm a woman, but 33 years ago, we said, so when I'd have to go talk to people and say, this is coming, they're going to have to show up. It was because, first of all, social media communications was all going to be out of, not, you better be good because you're going to get exposed. And the rise of women, the rise of technology, there was all these drivers that said this has to happen. And then plus, and now we say that the climate, it's no longer a theory. We're all experiencing the extreme weather events. We've seen, what happens with health inequities with the pandemic. We're all experiencing it now. So, and I guess one of my things is I do get nervous with acronyms like ESG. Even when it came out, it made me nervous. It's real easy, but it just made me nervous because I have people going, well, no ESG. And I went, so you don't want to take care of the planet? And you don't want, well, no, that's not what it's about. I was like, yeah, it is.
Why is that? Why do you get nervous about acronyms? Because people are just
people can weaponize them, and people can weaponize them and not understand what they are.
So it's easy to just brush it aside and say, I guess that happened with DEI.
Exactly. That was CRT was the first thing that raised a flag, and then it was critical race theory, and then DEI, and then I went. So I've never done a presentation that I haven't said, and I use sustainability both for social, for the people, for the planet, and the business.
Right. Right. Yeah. And thinking about like a business being sustainable, you treat your people well, you do certain things so that you can stay in business. I love your approach of it being good for the planet, good for the people, and good for the business.
And good for the business. And if it's, and when we would talk to people, and so it's back to, because when we started, there were a lot of people that just did it because they're, we hung out literally with, how we're, the Starbucks, the Body Shop, Ben and Jerry's, and those folks, and we just do this because we're cool people. I mean, I'm putting words in their mouth, but that was, we don't, and I'm like, well, then it's, that's back to that whole concept of it has to be beneficial to the business for it to be enduring. For it continue, and that we're back to that conversation. And back then, I'd say, we always talked about trying to have people hold on to the business objective, but not forget the soul part of it too. You still get to feel good about it. You still get to live your values. Don't it's marrying marrying both those together.
Right. Yeah, and I guess. So my next question, I think, is related to this too, and it's for a lot of people, individuals and small businesses and nonprofits, thinking about all the challenges that they're already facing just in this day and age, financial challenges, so many other issues. Thinking about nonprofits, they have so many difficulties these days with grants being cut and legislation changing and such. So the idea of doing more with sustainability could feel overwhelming, as they navigate these other pressures, or maybe their team is just doing so many things. So I'm sure there's a way to reframe the thinking around that and to help them feel a little calmer and better about engaging in more sustainable behaviors. Can you kind of speak to that?
Well, I think it's about, again, I believe it's a business imperative to open new markets, to act, and that goes for the environment, the social, the philanthropy, the volunteering. So, and go back to my comment about I was selling information technology that touched multiple different departments. So you can do, one of the ways into this, I was working with a catering company, and their philanthropy money was drying up at one of our recessions. And so we said, okay, well, take your clients to this museum for your marketing efforts, not your philanthropy. This is instead of taking them to a restaurant or to a hotel. But not only do you get the opportunity for this direct sales opportunity when your marketing department likes it and your philanthropy department likes it and your employees, because now you're touching all those different stakeholders, your community, and there's so much when you think about everything. You've got to think about what's important to me and our company, but also who cares, and where is it going to enhance those relationships. And if you're leveraging all of them, it's a price performer.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little outside of the box thinking can go a long way.
Yeah, and just to think about, well, who are all the people that it matters to that we're involved with the local with the local community? Who cares that we're being environmental? Who cares that we have an eco-bodice? I was just talking to a client yesterday. I said, go out and find everybody on, you know, in this business group, because they all say they're going to ask all their suppliers to do it. Well, that's an amazing marketing tool now. As you know, Ellen, all the pharmaceutical companies are stepping into want EcoVadis from their suppliers. Well, that's a great opening statement for a marketing call. It's just to be strategic about. It's how do you use this? I feel that it's as impactful as technology was, in terms of as application software that moved out of that computer room into the users. One transaction should hit multiple areas.
So really, like for this podcast, we speak to small business owners, and they really should be, no matter what business they're in, they really should be paying attention to sustainability is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, and find a way. Yeah, and it should be something that makes, and also should make sense to go, oh, that would make sense why that company's doing that. Have it also build your brand equity. Have it be part of your messaging, in terms of, well, they support this or they do this because Ellen, all that you do, it's because you're helping. You want to tell somebody because you want them to know you can help them do it. You help them communicate it, message, show their impact. But it's so the fact that what you're doing builds your brand equity. Well, this is who we are, not because it's just a nice thing to do. It's good. This is our competency.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. Now, I like the way you think, Mary. We ask everybody this question, and I'm curious to hear your answer. What does the word impact mean to you?
The outcome. I can have an outcome based on the information or on the work that we do. We can have change, is what impact. Impact doesn't have to be my values. It doesn't. It just has to be. We don't want it to be words on the page. Don't want it to be busy work. It has to have the desired outcome. It has to have that impact. That just happens to ours is to do responsible practices that benefit the planet, people, and the business. So that's the desired outcome. I don't know if that helps, but I do get called out sometimes on is that a bad person because their values are different than yours, or a bad company? And it's like, no, they're just not mine,
I've loved everything you said today. Thank you. Is there anything, as we wrap up here, is there anything else you want to add or discuss?
How they find out about us. And I think that's fehliggroup.com. And if you want to share our email, but even more importantly, it's you and I need, the Fehlig Group is really moving more into a collective because we are leveraging the 30 plus years in this. And so we want to work with businesses that are moving this forward, moving this effort, moving this impact, moving and so anybody, and then why we love working with you is because you help tell that story. You help, communicating exactly. And that's such, as I said, if you're doing this and not talking to all your stakeholders, yeah, it is just an extra burden on the company. It's about that communication so important. Anyway, my point being is that, yeah, the fehliggroup.com, if you want to, share my email address, but through you, hopefully, would be a great way for us to talk, because if you do what we recommend and don't tell the story, it is a burden on the business and not something that you can leverage.
Yeah, it feels like I'm doing a jigsaw puzzle right now, and this kind of feels like you need these different pieces to come together to be successful. Because doing the actions, understanding the impact, telling that story, engaging the stakeholders, letting your customers know what you're doing so they can be engaged with you. It all works together, and I love that we're kind of concluding with that thought.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Mary, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much.
This was fun.
Our Make an Impact tip of the month is consider what your stakeholders truly value and write it down. Then audit your current efforts. Where are you already backing up those values with action? Double down on what's working and bolster your impact by closing the gaps. Thanks for listening, and make sure to do good in the world this month. If you have questions you'd like us to address on the podcast, you can reach us at info@riveocreative.com. Subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss out on any of our incredible upcoming guests. And we'll see you soon at the Riveo Impact Lab.